But first, the story you haven't heard about Stephanopoulos. No one would have found out about the donations at all if a startup conservative news website called the Washington Free Beacon had not broke the news. In an age of opining, this website is doing actual reporting. And joining me now is the co-founder and editor-in-chief, Continetti. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get right to it. Do you believe Stephanopoulos is permanently tainted by these donations and the controversy around them?
I think it does taint him for the simple reason that he had an opportunity to disclose his donations when he interviewed the author of this very controversial book, Clinton Cash, and really grilled the author, Peter Schweitzer. That he could have taken that moment to say that I was a Clinton Foundation donor. He didn't. And I think that's the reason that the Washington Free Beacon pursued the story and the reason why the story has legs in other media.
So let's talk more about that in a minute, but take me to the moment where you all found out about this. How exactly did you all find out this donation even happened?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's simple investigative reporting. One of my reporters had composed a spreadsheet of all of the foundation's donors, and another of my reporters was just spending his off hours going through it. He just happened to see that George Stephanopoulos was in the list. So he contacts me and says, I found this out. What do I do? My first thought was, well, has he disclosed it? We did the research. It turned out George had not. My second thought was, well, we're going to write it up as a straight news piece, but first go to ABC News for comment.
So let's pick up there in a minute. But are you surprised that nobody had seen his name on the list before?
Not really. I've found since in the 3 years we've been doing the Free Beacon that there are a lot of stories out there that for whatever reason media just doesn't cover. And so whether it's archival research that we've done pertaining to Hillary Clinton, whether it's the staff of Senator Rand Paul, or whether it's George Stephanopoulos' donations, there's plenty of material for an upstart conservative site like the Free Beacon to cover.
There definitely is, but the foundation is being under such scrutiny, it seems surprising to me that people hadn't gone through the list and spotted Stephanopoulos' name.
Right. It's surprising to me, too, especially since he's connected to the Clintons in so many ways. Of course, his donation, $75,000, wasn't quite as big as some of the millions of dollars that the Clintons have received from foreign countries, for example, which is where I think most people's attention is right now.
And to be clear and to be fair, it was a charitable donation. It's not a donation to a campaign. What I would say, though, and what a lot of others have said is, it's a one-of-a-kind charity. It is not your average charity, and it's a very controversial organization. So tell me about what happened when you reached out to ABC and you asked for comment.
Well, we reached out to ABC News because, like any news site, we wanted fair comment from the subject of our stories. And ABC said that they would get back to us. Well, Friday morning, we were about to run the story. I asked if we had received anything. My reporter said no, ABC hadn't gotten back to him. And just as we were about to publish our story, another story on Politico with the headline, George Stephanopoulos discloses Clinton Foundation donations, appears at that very moment. I knew right away that what had happened was ABC News had gone to Politico with our scoop in order to control the narrative.
How did you feel when you saw it happen?
I felt very angry, Brian.
I would have too, I guess.
And it's lucky in this new media age that an angry editor has outlets like Twitter to express himself. So I went on Twitter and expressed my rage, and gratifyingly,
and got a lot of attention for it.
I got a lot of attention, and so the Free Beacon was still able to own the story, which we had uncovered.
By taking it to Politico, leaking it to Politico, they made it worse for themselves.
Absolutely, because it then became a media story. It became,
it became an inside baseball story as well.
An inside baseball story that then kind of picked up, and then what you saw basically was George Stephanopoulos, the old campaign operative, basically functioning like a campaign operative by taking information from one source, the reporters asking questions, and handing it to another source in order to shape the narrative.
We talked in the opening about you being a conservative site. You use the same word. So what do you say to people who might think you're just going after a guy you think is liberal? You know, this is all ideological for an editor like you or a reporter like yours.
You might be ideological in the way you approach the news, the subjects you start to cover, even the way you go about your investigations. But what you cannot do is be ideological in the way you report the news. And one thing that we've always tried to do at the Free Beacon is make copy that could appear in the New York Times or the Washington Post, except the names of the people we cover are different, the types of stories that we cover are different, our selection of expert quotes, for example, are different.
What if you had found, let's take the biggest political anchor on Fox News, Bret Baier. What if you found his name in the list? Would it have been a story?
I think it would have been a story, but of course, I probably wouldn't have found it because there are plenty of liberal reporters looking for exactly that sort of information who would have gotten to it first. We're looking for the stories that most of the media aren't paying attention to just because of their prior beliefs and experiences.
You guys acknowledge you come from the conservative point of view, but are doing real reporting.
Right. Well, I think that's our value added to this fractured media landscape we're all in. When we set up the Free Beacon, we made a rule that there'd be one opinion column on the site, and that'd be mine. And that's the editor's prerogative. But otherwise, every writer I hire is there to do reporting. And they've done a pretty good job so far, I think.
Have you heard much from ABC in recent days, and have they apologized for this apparent handing off of your scoop to Politico?
No apology. I'm still waiting by the phone, ABC, anytime.
I think you're being a little sarcastic there.
No apology. They did respond to one of our inquiries about a separate story, which was thrilling. But I have to say, it does make me pause as an editor if a reporter comes up with another George Stephanopoulos story and says, should I go to him for comment? I'm going to think twice.
Matt, thanks for being here. Great talking with you.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. We are just getting started.